I love how the media takes a few critics when the overwhelming response from the American people is support for what this administration is doing.
The bright studio lights shined down as Whoopi Goldberg leaned back in her chair, her face full of confidence. Across from her, Joy Behar smirked, ready to speak. The audience waited, eager for another moment of drama. You know what's funny? Joy said, tilting her head. These Republicans love their conspiracy theories, but remind me, Whoopi, who has actually been wrong about everything for the last few years? Whoopi shrugged in an exaggerated way. Oh, let me think. Oh, wait, them, she said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. Laughter filled the studio. They had done this so many times before. Another conservative in their sights. Another chance to prove they were in control. But across the city, Karoline Leavitt was watching. She wasn't in that studio, but she might as well have been. She sat in her office, eyes locked on the screen, fingers tapping against her desk. She had expected this attack. What she didn't expect was how shameless it would be.
Here we go. Trump's back in the White House. Republicans control both the House and the Senate. So Democrats aren't just unhappy about this, they're turning on each other.
They had no idea what was coming because Karoline had already made her move. And by the end of the day, The View would regret ever saying her name. Whoopi Goldberg sat up straight, her voice rising. Karoline Leavitt? Please? Another conservative Barbie who thinks she's making history? Joy Behar chuckled, leaning forward. If I had $1 for every time one of these right-wingers claimed they were being attacked, oh wait, I do. It's called my paycheck. The audience laughed.
How long can they afford to hold a grudge with each other before working on a plan to get power back?
Sunny Hostin nodded, her lawyer tone kicking in. She's not here to debate because she can't. They never have real arguments, just outrage. It's always the big bad media is after us. But the truth? They just can't handle it. More applause, more smirks, more certainty that they were winning. This was their turf, their game, and today was just another episode of them setting the record straight. Or so they thought. Silence filled the room, except for the soft hum of her computer. She sat motionless, staring at the black screen. Her coffee sat untouched on the desk. She had known they would come after her. She had prepared for it. But this wasn't just an attack. It was a hit job. Her fingers curled around the coffee cup. She lifted it, then set it down hard. Not enough to break it, but enough to send a clear, ringing clink through the room. Across from her, her communications director, Matt, leaned forward. So, are we going with the controlled approach? Karoline raised an eyebrow. Matt sighed. Got it. Nuclear. She stood up, pacing the room. Her mind raced, already assembling the perfect response. They think they control the narrative, she muttered. They think if they say it loud enough, people will believe them.
That is Barbara. She works till the very last minute. She loves being at work. She loves it more than, I think, being at home. But, you know, and I don't expect her to be home now.
She turned to her team, eyes sharp. They have no idea what's coming. Matt chuckled. ABC executives are probably sweating bullets right now. Karoline smirked. And they should be. She picked up her phone, scrolling through headlines. Leavitt under fire on The View. ABC faces backlash. She smirked. Oh, they think that was heated? She sat back down, crossing one leg over the other. By the time I'm done, they'll be wishing they never said my name. Karoline didn't waste time. The moment The View's segment ended, she was already crafting her response. She knew exactly how this worked. They would throw their insults, pat themselves on the back, and expect her to stay quiet. That wasn't going to happen. Sitting at her desk, she hit record on her phone. No fancy setup, no script, just her looking straight into the camera. That was all she needed. You know, she started, her voice calm but sharp. I knew The View would attack me today. It's what they do. Smear conservatives, mock strong women they don't agree with, and then pretend they're the victims. She leaned in slightly, her tone growing firmer. But let's get something straight. Whoopi, Joy, Sunny, you don't speak for the American people. You sit in a cushy New York studio laughing at anyone who dares to think differently than you. She paused for a second, letting her words sink in, then she went in for the kill. But here's the real kicker, she said, a small smirk forming. For all your talk about protecting democracy and defending women's voices, you refuse to have me on your show. You know why? Because you're afraid. You don't want a real debate. You want an echo chamber.
Nurses, if you're watching, we adore you, we respect you. Right. Clap for the nurses, really.
She glanced at the camera, her eyes burning with confidence. So, here's my challenge. Have me on. Let's see if you can handle a real conversation or keep hiding behind your applause signs. Your call. She hit post. Within seconds, the video started gaining traction. Retweets, shares, thousands of comments flooding in. Karoline sat back, watching the numbers climb. The first strike had landed. Now it was only a matter of time before The View felt it. The response was immediate. Social media exploded, with conservatives rallying behind Karoline, and even some moderates raising eyebrows at The View's smug dismissal. Clips of the segment were everywhere, side by side with Karoline's direct response. She called them out, and she's right, one post read. They attack, but they won't debate. Typical. Even mainstream outlets started picking up the story. Fox News, Karoline Leavitt challenges The View to a face-to-face debate. Will they accept? Meanwhile, inside ABC's headquarters, things weren't looking so smooth. Producers huddled in meetings, watching the online backlash in real time. Whoopi and Joy brushed it off on camera, but behind the scenes, executives weren't laughing. The segment was supposed to be another routine takedown. Instead, it had turned into a PR mess. Emails flew back and forth. Should they respond, ignore it? Damage control mode had been activated. By the afternoon, a weak attempt at a response appeared on The View's official Twitter. We welcome diverse opinions, but we won't entertain false narratives. Our focus remains on facts and respectful discussions. It didn't land. The replies were brutal. Respectful discussions? Then why not have Karoline on? One user shot back. Another simply posted a gif of Whoopi cutting off a guest mid-sentence. Karoline scrolled through the chaos, shaking her head. They're scrambling, she muttered. Matt grinned. And we're just getting started. The View was cornered. Their smug dismissal of Karoline had backfired, and now they had two choices: ignore the storm or fight back. They chose war. The next morning, the panel was fired up. The producers had spent the night strategizing, and it was clear they had a new game plan. They weren't just going to defend themselves, they were going to destroy Karoline.
The DA who is indicting him, or whatever the legal term is right now, she's a big Republican. I'm only saying this because Alec Baldwin is a target.
Whoopi's face was tight with frustration as the show opened. So, apparently we struck a nerve, she said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. This young lady, what's her name again? Karoline? She waved her hand dismissively. She's out here playing the victim, crying about how we won't debate her. Joy scoffed, shaking her head. Oh, please. She wants a debate? Sweetheart, go debate in your little Twitter bubble. We don't need to platform extremism. Sunny leaned in, her expression serious. This is what they do. They twist the truth, play the martyr, and rile up their followers with lies. It's dangerous. The audience clapped, but it was weaker than usual. Even some of their most loyal viewers had seen Karoline's video. They knew she hadn't played the victim. She had called them out. Then came the lowest blow. Whoopi smirked. Look, if she really wanted to talk, she wouldn't be hiding behind a camera. But hey, maybe she just needs the attention. You know how these social media conservatives are, desperate for clicks. The segment ended, but the war had just begun. Karoline watched the clip, jaw clenched. This wasn't just media bias. It was a full-on smear campaign. She took a deep breath, then hit record. I wasn't going to respond to this, she began, her voice steady but sharp. But you know what? I'm done playing nice. She leaned forward, eyes blazing. The View just accused me of being desperate for attention. Let's talk about that. Whoopi Goldberg, a Hollywood millionaire, sits on a daytime talk show that thrives on controversy. Joy Behar, who's built her career on mocking conservatives, has made millions doing exactly what they're accusing me of, getting attention. But when I respond to their attacks, suddenly I'm the problem? She shook her head. No, what they're really afraid of is a strong, young conservative woman who won't be bullied. Then she delivered the knockout punch. You say I'm hiding behind a camera? Fine. I'll make this simple. I will come to your studio. I will sit across from you, live, with no edits, no scripts, and no audience applause drowning out the truth. If you really believe what you're saying, prove it. Have me on. She let the challenge hang in the air before ending with one last jab. But we both know you won't, because this isn't about debate. It's about control, and you're losing it. She hit post. Scene 7. The internet erupts. The View on the rope. Karoline's video was everywhere. In minutes, it had racked up thousands of shares, trending across social media. Major conservative figures jumped in, amplifying her call out. Fox News picked it up, so did the Daily Wire. Even some left-leaning outlets couldn't ignore it. Meanwhile, The View was in chaos. The producers hadn't expected Karoline to double down like this. They had underestimated her. The backlash was worse than before. Their mentions were flooded with demands. Have Karoline on. Debate her live. Why are you afraid? Their PR team scrambled. They issued a vague statement about how the show welcomes different perspectives, but made no mention of inviting Karoline. It wasn't enough. Karoline watched the meltdown unfold, a small smile playing at her lips. They had tried to destroy her. Instead, they had made her unstoppable. The pressure was unbearable. The View had spent years controlling the narrative, dismissing critics with a smug laugh and a wave of the hand, but this time it was different. They weren't just facing angry tweets or conservative media pushback, they were facing a full-scale revolt. Even their own viewers were asking questions they didn't want to answer. Conservative voices weren't the only ones calling them out. Independent journalists, free speech advocates, and even some moderate liberals demanded to know why a show that prided itself on open discussion was running from a debate. The network executives were getting nervous. Viewership numbers were down for the second day in a row. The backlash wasn't fading, it was growing. Sponsors started calling, worried about being associated with a show that suddenly seemed weak, dishonest, and hypocritical. Behind the scenes, the mood was tense. Whoopi was furious. This is ridiculous. Since when do we have to justify not giving a platform to some right-wing internet personality? She fumed. Joy was just as frustrated. It'll blow over, it always does. But Sunny knew better. She had seen the analytics. Their audience was shrinking, engagement was collapsing, and the show's reputation had taken a serious hit. The producers held an emergency meeting. There were only two options: ignore the controversy and hope it died down, or do damage control. Someone floated the idea of inviting Karoline on after all, perhaps to stage a gotcha moment, but the risk was too high. If they lost control of the conversation, it could be a disaster. So they stuck to their strategy, silence. And it didn't work. Karoline had already won. Her following had exploded. Conservative media had rallied around her, elevating her voice beyond anything The View had anticipated. The more they ignored her challenge, the weaker they looked. By the end of the week, the network made a quiet decision. No more mentions of Karoline, no more engagement with the controversy. The View would move on and pretend none of this had happened. But the damage was done. Viewers had seen the truth. The View wasn't about open discussion. It was about control, and when faced with a real challenge, they had run. Karoline, meanwhile, was stronger than ever. She had stood up to one of the biggest media machines in the country and won. And she wasn't stopping there.